You want to know how I know God is waiting on you? You're praying for the thing that you want, but once the prayer is done, now what are you doing to put that into practice? What are you doing with your time to make sure that prayer becomes a reality? The door is not locked. A lot of the time, we convince ourselves that we're not worthy to go through the doors. God gave you absolutely everything you need to be successful in life, but because you don't know the fastest way to get there, you're like, I don't know how to do it. The lane that you're in was built for the speed that you're capable of. What you have is all that you are required to have to get from where you are to where you're trying to be. Don't let logic convince you of something that only faith is qualified to tell you. Sometimes that voice from God that you're looking for is the voice that's already in your head. We treat God like we in a drive-thru waiting for a Happy Meal, right? You just think you're gonna pull up, ask for the number 2, and then you're gonna get it right away. God doesn't move on my time. Sometimes people are procrastinating, but they think that they're being patient. Because procrastination and patience could look the same from far away. Just because the tree didn't fall yet don't mean the axe not swinging. They still swinging that axe. And eventually, the patience will be rewarded with the victory. Because unfortunately, we live in a generation where some people can look at you and they don't see the fruits of your labor yet and they think you're not doing shit at all. But the difference between you, the person who's being patient, and the person that's being a procrastinator is the procrastinator is sitting still, hoping that something comes from nothing. That's the difference between patience and procrastination. Welcome back to another episode of the Halfway Up Podcast, and I call it Halfway Up because you're never finished rising. It's like another way of saying it's not about the destination, but it's about the journey. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about when you're waiting for a sign, and we're going to get into what it's like waiting for a sign, chasing a goal, chasing a purpose, pursuing a dream, right? And you're waiting for a sign. Maybe it's not even about a dream. Maybe it's just about you waiting for confirmation for you to make the right choice. Maybe it's waiting for you to wait for the right confirmation to make the right decision, right? Some type of answer from the divine, some type of answer from the universe, some type of answer from God, right? Coming in some type of way that you recognize it and then you realize that's what I was looking for. That's what this episode is going to be about, because as a spiritually led person, right, I am a believer of God and I've believed in God all my life. But as you get older, you tend to, if you already believe in God, and some people go from non-believers to being believers, because something about being older, something about being an adult, it pushes you, informs you into understanding how difficult life can be. You understand how challenging life can be for you as a person, and you get forced to realize certain things, right? You get forced to realize how good God really is to you, and you become more and more of a believer. So I might have always believed in God, but my understanding of God continues to grow, right? I like to look at words like buckets, and depending on how much liquid is in that bucket is how much you understand what that word actually means, right? So I feel like the older that I've become, my understanding of God and the presence of God has continuously become bigger and larger at scale. And as you continue to grow older and you continue to get pushed into these challenges and these scenarios where you get closer to God, you understand the importance of waiting for a sign, right? You know, when I was growing up, my mom would always tell me, as long as you have God's permission, the struggle won't be in vain, right? Because struggle and trial and tribulation and a bit of chaos, to be real, is kind of mandatory and kind of necessary for your development in life, whether you're a believer in God or you're not a believer in God. But one thing I can tell you for sure is that when you have God in your corner and when you have God giving you signs and giving you instruction and giving you clear directions on where to go and how to go about something, it's not to say that you're going to go through that situation being completely untouched, right? It's not to say that you'll walk through it flawlessly, but it is to say that no matter what happens to you when you're going through that process, it will add more to you. Just as much as it takes, it will bring more, right? Because it's a part of your character development. And these are the things that really build character. You know, these are the things that are needed for your foundation, for your purpose. To become the person that you're meant to be, you got to go through certain kind of things, right? But as we're going through those things, we wait for signs and we wait for just answers and a sense of direction so we can feel like we're not lost, so we can feel like we're going in the right direction, or we can feel like we're not wasting our time. And that's what this episode is going to be about. I want this to be that SOS. I want this to be that team spirit of the people that's on that grind, that's on that journey, or they just looking for something. looking for an answer, right? People wanting more for their life, genuinely wanting the best for themselves and everybody around them, but then maybe they're not sure what the first step in that direction should be because maybe some people feel like they got too much to lose, so they need their next move to be their best move, and you waiting. I want this conversation to be for y'all. I want this conversation to be for those people who genuinely want the best or trying their best, but they just, before they do anything, they want to make sure that they thought about it first. And before they do anything, they just want to make sure that their next move gonna be their best move. Because, sometimes in life, man, when you're doing something that nobody's ever done before, you don't always have the privilege of having people to give you the advice that you're looking for. You don't always have the privilege of people being around. You don't always have the privilege of people giving you the education, the knowledge, the wisdom to help you get from one place to another. Sometimes when you're the first in your family, the first in your friend group, the first of your peers, you might not have the luxury of having somebody who can school you through it. Somebody who can give you the map, right? Somebody who can give you the emotional GPS and be like, don't do this because I went there and that's where I failed. Go this way instead. Sometimes we don't have that privilege. So sometimes you don't have that privilege, but you know you want more for yourself. But you know that deep in your heart, you have a purpose. You have a goal that you're really trying to make happen, right? There's answers that you're looking for that'll really change your life and make everything better for yourself. So you ask and you wait for the signs. Because if you don't have anybody that you could talk to, or there is no YouTube, or there is no book to help explain how to get through your specific situation, that's when we fall back and we ask God to give us the sign. We ask the universe to give us the clarity that we need to maneuver through this situation the correct way. And that's what this episode is for, man. It's for the people that are waiting for those signs, because I want you to understand that I feel you. There's two types of people in this life, man. There are people that are on the journey and there are people that are not, right? For the people that are on that journey, I want you to understand there are other people on that journey just like me, who's either gone through what you've gone through or going through what you're going through currently. And this is why I want to have that conversation. I want this to be that waving of the flag. I want this to be that jersey that when you see it, you recognize that these are my people. They rocking my colors. I want this to be for those people that are really trying their best to give everything they got in life. They invest in the best of their time, the best of their energy, right? And every single day, though they might not get it right every single time, they know that deep in their heart, though I made a mistake, I'm trying to learn from the lessons. Though I made a mistake, I'm never going to mistake the message in the lesson. These are for those people that are waiting for those signs because every single day they on their grind. And I'm hoping that these words can be some encouragement, some type of motivation, some type of inspiration, that spark in the dark that you need to know which direction you need to go into and find your way outside that dark tunnel. I'm hoping that this can be that thing that help you get one step closer to getting closer to your goal, to getting closer to your dream, or getting closer to that answer that you're curious about. I want this to be that motivation. That's the goal of today's conversation here at the Halfway Up Podcast. And without further ado, we're going to get straight into it, right? So the first thing that I want us to talk about is understanding the difference between patience and procrastination. One thing I've learned about people that are waiting for signs to make their next move, their best move, is sometimes people get it misunderstood, patience and procrastination. Sometimes people are procrastinating, but they think that they're being patient. But what I want you to understand is that the difference between patience and procrastination is just waiting for something to happen to you, seemingly while actually doing nothing to get one step closer to what it is that you're looking for. So you say you're looking for guidance. You say you're looking for security. You say you're looking for clarity, right? You say you're looking for the things that you don't have, but when in actuality, you're not actually doing anything to get you one step closer to having that. And that right there is the whole difference between patience and procrastination, because procrastination and patience could look the same from far away. But when you get up on it, you realize that the person that's being patient, they're actively going out their way to get the knowledge. They're actively going out their way to get the information. They're actively going out their way to find how they can get close to the people that they need to be close to, right? So they're doing things. There's emotion that exists inside of them. And it might not look like it because the accomplishments are not there, right? The big goals, the big checkpoints that everybody can see is not there yet. Might not have any big trophies that they can show from their hard work just yet, right? But understand that they still swinging. They still swinging that axe. Just because the tree didn't fall yet don't mean the axe not swinging. They still swinging that axe. They get into it. And eventually, the patience will be rewarded with the victory, with the accomplishments, right? With the success. Because unfortunately, we live in a generation where some people can look at you and they don't see the fruits of your labor yet, and they think you're not doing shit at all. But I want to affirm you that you know the difference. And though the fruits of your labor might not have showed up yet, eventually it will, right? But the difference between you, the person who's being patient, and the person that's being a procrastinator is the procrastinator is sitting still, hoping that something comes from nothing. The procrastinator is doing nothing, spending their time doing everything outside of what they're supposed to be doing, but expecting the same results. That's the difference between patience and procrastination. And when you're waiting for a sign, I need you to understand that some of you are waiting for a sign and you're being very delusional in your desires to get one because you're not even putting yourself in position to hear something. Huh? You're not even putting yourself into position, right? Somewhere in the Bible it says that faith without works is dead. So you can have all the faith that you want to have, but if you don't have any work, right? Your prayers got to have legs on them. You get what I'm saying? Your desires have to have legs on them, right? You got to have motion to the things that you say that you want, because if you don't move, then you're going to lose. How can you expect to win when you don't move? It's the motion that gets you from where you are to where you want to be. I'm not saying that rest is not important. And let me make a little room for the people that are being still and they're not really clear whether they're being a procrastinator or being somebody who's being patient. Sometimes you do got to sit still to get the answer that you're looking for. Sometimes it is better to sit still than just to be spinning your wheels and burning your energy and you're not having nothing come from it, right? If you keep punching the wall expecting that wall to drop down, well, then you're crazy and you're delusional, right? Because that's not how you drop the wall. That's not how you push the door open sometimes, right? So I understand that sometimes being still is important because you need to rest. Sometimes being still is important because you need time to allow the answer to come to you. You need to sometimes eliminate the distractions in your life and isolate yourself so that you can hear the voice of God. Sometimes being still is very important and it's a very necessary ingredient for the recipe of your success. But understand there's a time, there's a place, and you can't overstay your welcome in being still. And there are people out there that think that they're being patient when they're actually procrastinating because they're waiting. But you've been waiting and you've been waiting too long. I need you to understand that everything that's necessary for you to get what you want out of life, God already gave you. God gave his people all the tools, all the necessary things to accomplish what it is that you say that you want in your life. And understand at some point, you standing still has more to say about you than it has to say about anything else, right? Too many times we're looking for the answer outside of ourselves, right? Like if I just had more of this, if these people would tell me this, if I had access to this information, if I had access to these relationships, if I had access to this type of money, right? But that takes all the accountability away from everything that you do have access to right now. You have willpower, you have freedom, you have creativity, you have discipline, you have integrity, you have hard work, right? You have tenacity, you have sacrifice. These are superpowers. You have intuition, you have discernment. These are the superpowers that God already pre-installed you. You got pre-installed with very powerful things that can help you get from one point to another. And sometimes we sacrifice our potential to be great with what it is that we have. I know that there's things that you don't have. I know that you were not blessed with all the advantages, and I know that you were not blessed with all the privileges in life. But let's not ignore the privileges that we do have, right? The difference between patience and procrastination, you got to ask yourself and be honest with yourself, right? This is not a conversation to judge you or to make you feel bad, but it is a conversation to hopefully slap you and wake you up and realize which one of these am I actually doing? Sometimes you got to rest, but sometimes you got to apply action. You have to have motion to get from where you are to where you want to be. Motion, right? Nobody's going to carry you there. There's no magic carpet that's just going to sweep underneath you and carry you to where you need to go. You know, you're not Aladdin. Being patient is doing the best that you can and understanding even though you're not in control of creating the outcome right away, you know that it's going to happen. Some days it's harder than most, but you still try. Some days you're more confused than others, but you still try. Some days you feel like you deserve the trophy and you didn't get it, but you still try. That's being patient. Procrastinating is looking at everything you think you deserve, but not doing anything to get you one step closer to getting it. Procrastinating is looking at everybody else while they actually trying to do their thing and telling them what they could be doing or what they're doing wrong, and yet you're not doing anything at all, right? That's the difference between somebody who procrastinates and somebody who's patient. Because I know how to spot a procrastinator. Somebody who has a problem with procrastinating is the type of person who points the finger at everybody else while they're actually doing their dream. Meanwhile, they're not doing anything to contribute them getting closer to theirs. A procrastinator looks at somebody else and tells them, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what you could be doing right. This is where they're fucking up. This is where they're making a mistake. But then they don't apply that same level of criticism to their own self so that they can get one step closer to what it is that they say that they want. That's what a procrastinator does. But somebody who is being patient understands that though I might have made a try and it didn't work out, though I might have made an investment and I didn't get the return of that investment, at least I'm trying though, and I'm not gonna give up. Now, some days I might need to sit down because I'm tired. You know, some days I might need to sit down because you know what? I'm spinning my energy, I'm spinning my wheels, and nothing is coming from this, and I'm on the brink of burning out. Let me sit back, let me sit down, let me seek refuge real quick. Let me recollect myself, right? Let me meditate, let me rest, let me get right. That's what a patient person does, but eventually they get back on it. But somebody who procrastinates and struggles with procrastination don't do that at all, you know, and that's the difference. And I want you to have a real conversation with yourself about where are you between that line on the sand? You know, where are you? You know, it's not to judge you. The person who procrastinates is not any less important than the person who's being patient. But if you want to see yourself get to where it is that you want to get to in this life with the very limited amount of time that we have, because again, one thing I say on this podcast all the time, none of us know how much time we actually have, right? So no, the person who's patient and the person who procrastinates, neither one of them is better than the other. But it is to say that if you want to get one step closer to the thing that you actually desire in your heart, you got to first have a real conversation with yourself and ask yourself, which person am I? Now, the second thing that I want to discuss when it comes to waiting for a sign is understanding that God speaks to everybody differently. And this is really important when we having these spiritual conversations, right? Because a lot of people that are believers in God can make the mistake of trying to tell people how God's supposed to talk to them when you can't possibly do that because you're not inside of their body, right? I know that God has spoke to me in several different ways. I've heard God has spoke to me through strangers. God has spoken to me through family members that have said things that I had just asked, right? I had just said to myself, and then they come through and they say the exact same thing. And I took that as an affirmation of God speaking to me, right? I've interpreted the voice of God through signs, right? Literal signs on the wall, literal people. I've interpreted the voice of God through colors. I've interpreted the voice of God through sounds. I've interpreted the voice of God through television, through movies, through books. I've interpreted the voice of God through conversations that I wasn't even a part of, that I just was able to overhear. And I think the way that we probably all agree with the most when it comes to God communicating to us is I've interpreted the voice of God through my intuition and what I feel in my gut, right? God speaks to everybody in different ways. And I want you to understand that when you're on a journey and you're looking for the answers and you're looking for the signs, right? You're trying to connect the pieces. You're trying to get from one place to another. You should have your mind open to any type of way that God could be communicating to you. I wouldn't leave nothing off the table. Because if you're really looking for that sign, who are you to say how it's going to come to you? Who are you to say how that sign and how that message is going to be delivered to you? You never know. And when you're at that point in your life when you don't know how you're going to get the answer that you're looking for, but you know that you're still looking for it, open up your heart. Open up your mind, right? And open up your expectations. You never know how God is going to deliver a message to you. God could deliver you a message through the person that you hate the most. God could deliver a message to you through a complete stranger. God can deliver a message to you through the thing that you don't even enjoy doing the most. It could be through your teacher. It could be through your grandmother. It could be through a movie, a TV show that you would never watch. It could be from you taking the longer way home this time or going a different way than you would usually go, and then you see something. It could be a billboard, right? It could be a shooting star in the sky. You know, it could be anything. And when you're on your journey and you're being patient and you're really seeking that information, I mean, like you're really seeking that answer, you're really seeking that knowledge, give yourself grace and understand that God speaks to everybody very differently. And when you might be somebody in somebody's life who sees somebody not doing what you think that they're supposed to be doing, which is a mistake that I've made plenty of times. I am the spokesperson. You could put my picture on the wall for the type of person who push people in the direction that they're not supposed to be pushed in, right? Because I have made the mistake of thinking what's obvious to me is supposed to be obvious to them, when I have now had the time to mature and grow, and I understand that God speaks to everybody differently, and God speaks to everybody at different times. And sometimes for us as people who want the most for people that are next to us, family members, friends, peers, right? Colleagues, we see them and we see the potential in those people and we want the best for them. So sometimes we tell them what we think that they need to hear, but sometimes you got to understand the business between God and that person is not your business. Right. And like I said, and I don't want to be a hypocrite and I don't mean to be a hypocrite, right? Because like I said, God shows up in people's lives in different ways, right? So I would love to be the type of person that shows up in a person's life that I love as the sign from God, right? So you think because you got a good word or you got some good information, you got some good advice or some good wisdom that you feel like just because you got the answer that you can stumble across those people and tell them a little something and that might be the key they need to get through that door. But it might not be, right? Because sometimes what God got for them might not register until moments later. Sometimes the answer that they need is something that's going to have to be connected later on in life with a specific scenario, with a specific relationship, right? And that don't got nothing to do with you. So understanding, you got to make space for how differently God speaks to people. But for the people that are waiting for a sign, open up your ears. Eliminate the distractions in your life. If there's something in your life and it's taking way too much of your attention to the point where you might miss that answer, you might miss that sign, you might miss that message, isolate yourself from anything that's not going to help you get closer to your goal. Isolate yourself from anything that's not going to help you get one step closer to your dream. Because one thing I can tell you, God is always talking. It just might not be what we want to hear all the time. But God is always communicating. The universe is always dropping bars, always dropping gems, but it might not be the gem that we wanted, right? So I might be asking God like, yo, how do you get through this door right here? I need to know, how do you get through this door? God like, well, I kind of need you to learn this lesson first so you can get the skills, so you can be prepared for what's waiting for you on the other side of that door. The universe might be telling you that, and you don't even hear it because you're like, how do I get through this door? You don't want to hear nothing else, but how do I get through this door? And God like, okay, I understand you want to get through that door, but I need to condition you first. Because right now you like clay and you trying to become a vase or you're trying to become a bowl or some type of pottery and you're not ready to become pottery yet, bro. Because you're trying to avoid the conditioning that's going to force you to get molded into that thing that you want to be, but you're not ready yet because you ain't did the work. Right? Understanding that God talks to all of us differently and make space for that. But most importantly, if you're on that journey and you're looking for that answer, open your heart, open your mind, because you don't know how God gonna communicate this information to you. It might come through listen, hopefully it's coming through this podcast. It might come through your niece, it might come through your nephew, it might come from the most unsuspecting, unpredictable places, bro. You get what I'm saying? The reason why God speaks to everybody differently is because we're all different. What I've been through requires me to get a certain specific kind of message that maybe my best friend don't need to have, right? What I've gone through in my reality, right? Perception is reality. That's why they call it a personality, right? Because it's your personal reality. What I've been through in my personal reality might cause God to tell me something differently that he don't need to tell my sister, that he don't need to tell my mother, my father, my homies, my cousins, my teachers, my colleagues, my peers, right? All of the relationships that I got. That's why God has to speak to us differently. And it's important for us as people who support people or people who want the best for the people that we love, when we see them not moving to our expectations, it's important for us to give them space, because we got to understand that the way God speaks to us, God don't speak to them like that. And furthermore, whatever information or conversation that you're ignoring with God is not my business, right? My only job is to come through, drop my little information, drop my little inspiration, and then keep it moving, right? Because it's not my job to force you to apply that information. It's my job to give it to you. It's my job to share with you out of my love for you. And that's one mistake that spiritual people can make all the time. This is a mistake that I've made plenty of times, right? I'm thinking like, this is the right information. You got to apply it right now. This is the right information. What are you doing? I told you what to do. Once I gave it to you, I release it. I put it out. That was my good deed. That's the only thing that God want me to do. You know what I'm saying? But you have your own history and your own lessons and things that you've been through that I ain't never been through. And that changes the way you think. And that changes the way that you hear the voice of God, right? So we got to give space for people to understand that Everybody's going to hear the voice of God differently because everybody went through different things that created different people. Sometimes God speaks through silence. And then there are other times where God speaks through people in a very loud and aggressive and animated way. But we don't get to choose how God want to talk to us. And that's something that's very important when you're on this journey and you're looking for those answers. The first thing you got to understand, we don't get to tell God how to talk to us. We might think we know what's best for us, just like a child thinks they knows what's best for them when their parent is telling them no and they get upset, but you don't. And you don't really realize that until the coming of age, until you get older, and then you can look back and then the hindsight is 2020 and you realize like, I see. I see why I couldn't get the thing that I was asking for. I see why I couldn't get the information that I was looking for because I wasn't ready and I was skipping steps. You understand? God speaks to all of us differently because we all need different things. But trust and believe and make no mistake about it, God knows your language. God knows exactly what you need to hear what you need to hear. God knows it, right? Because, and the last thing I'm gonna say on this is how God chooses to speak to you might not work for me, right? What you might hear effortlessly, it might take me a really long time to really listen to, right? I might be too hard-headed to really get that message in the same way and vice versa. What God might do to deliver a message, a little birdie to me, might be something that go way over your head, right? So we got to give space. And more importantly, you got to give yourself space, understanding that God speaks to everybody differently. But what I want you to do is open your heart to interpreting God in all the ways that God might come. Because God might surprise you. You know what I mean? You might be expecting God to come from this way. You looking this way, waiting for God to come through. God then came through on the back end and tapped you on your shoulder like, oh shit. Because you might have this certain relationship with God and you expecting God to come from this direction because that's all you've ever known God to do, right? It's come from this direction. And while you sitting here waiting patiently, God come through, tap you on your shoulder like, oh yeah, nigga, nah. Because you want some different shit, I got to do some different shit with you. You get what I'm saying? Because you want some different shit, I got to do something with you I ain't never did before to get you the message. That's how I go sometimes. And I feel like that leads perfectly into my third point. Are you waiting on God or is God waiting on you? That's a very important question to ask yourself when you're on this journey, when you're in pursuit of following your dreams, of victory, of accomplishments, of glory, right? Or clarity, lack of depression, lack of confusion, peace, whatever it is that you're looking for on your journey, because we all looking for different things, right? We all have different households that we grew up in. We were born in different conditions and environments, which inspired us to need different things, right? What I need, everybody don't need. And what everybody need, I don't need, right? But the one thing that you got to ask yourself, regardless of what you're looking for, whatever it is you're trying to get from where you are versus in comparison to where you're trying to be, whatever it is you're trying to get, right? The difference between where you are and where you want to be, the number one thing you got to ask yourself is, are you waiting on God or is God waiting on you? Because a lot of the time, going back to that conversation about patience versus procrastination, is that a lot of the time we think we've convinced ourselves that we waiting on God, like God is just some magic genie, some magician that does whatever we want him to do as soon as we ask it, right? We treat God like we in the drive-through waiting for a Happy Meal, right? You just think you're gonna pull up, ask for the number 2, and then you're gonna get it right away. God don't move on my time. God doesn't move on my time. God don't move on my time just because I asked for it. That's not how God works. Just like a parent don't give a kid whatever he wants just because the kid is crying and they asking for it. Because just like the parent, God knows what's actually best for you. And a lot of us have convinced ourselves that we are waiting on God when God is really waiting on you. Because God gave you free will. God gave you the ability to do all things through Christ that strengthens you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Faith without works is dead. Lean not on your own understanding and trust in all the ways that I do. If we're going to trust in all the ways that God has done for us, then we got to understand God gave us the ability to think. God gave us the ability to choose. God gave us the ability to be creative. God gave us the ability to try. And a lot of us are forfeiting our ability to try. And we're waiting for God to do things for us. When God has given, God is not your maid. God is not your servant. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are created to serve God. And in return, God serves us. But we are supposed to serve God because that is how we worship God, right? And the best way that we can serve God is by using what God has given us to the best of our ability to create a better life for not only ourselves, but everybody around us. That is how we honor God. That is how we honor the gifts that God gave us, by using them. You have to use what God gave you. You have to put it into practice. It can't be theory. It can't just be theory. It has to be something that you put in motion. And it's okay to admit that you're hesitating. It's okay to admit that you're procrastinating and you're dragging your feet. That's okay, because everybody has to admit something. Even the people that are seemingly doing all the right things in life, there's something that they struggle with. They struggle just don't look like yours. You get what I'm saying? Maybe your struggle is less acceptable within society, right? But everybody is struggling with something. So I want you to understand that this is not to judge you. This is not to point the finger at you. This is not to condemn you and make you feel small or separate you from the rest of the people, because that's the problem. Too many times we're separating ourselves from each other when we have more in common than not, right? It's okay to admit it, but you got to admit it though. You got to get to a place where you can be honest with yourself and be truthful, and come to a place where you can acknowledge that, you know what, I'm hesitating. I'm not waiting on God. God is waiting on me. It's okay to admit that, because once you get to a place where you can acknowledge that, you get one step closer to becoming the person that you actually want to be, to becoming the person that actually creates and sees the fruits of their labor. You get one step closer to becoming that person, man. It's okay to get to a place in your life when you can admit that you're procrastinating, right? And it's okay to get to a place. It's okay to get to a place in your life where you can be honest with yourself and admit that what I thought was me being patient was really me procrastinating, right? And one thing I want to tell you, one level, it's okay to admit that what I thought was being patient was really me procrastinating and just convincing myself, because it feels better to think that you're waiting than to admit to yourself that you're wasting your time. It feels better. One thing I want to tell you, to give you a word of encouragement, is that you cannot get out of the current chapter of your life until you turn a page. To turn a page, that's a motion. To turn a page, that's a verb. To turn a page, you're actually doing something, right? It doesn't matter that people don't see it doesn't matter that you haven't got the big trophies in your life to show everybody, like, oh, look at me. Look at the trophy that I got from my hard work. Look at the trophy that I got from my sacrifices and my accomplishments. It's okay that you don't have that yet, because that's going to come to you. But again, we call it the Halfway Up Podcast because it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. We can't get caught up in the trophies, right? We can't get caught up in, I'm not driving the nice car, I don't have the nice house yet, right? We can't get caught up in that. We have to find a way to enjoy the process to getting there. And I want you to understand, as a word of encouragement, not to put you down, not to separate you from the rest of us, but to help you to understand that you cannot get out of the current chapter that you are in until you turn that page. And then you have to turn another page, and then another page, and then another page. And then you create a momentum. And that is the only way you get from where you are to where you're trying to be, is by flipping them pages. Because a lot of us have this analysis paralysis, and we're procrastinating, and we don't like the chapter that we're in, but we're not actively doing anything to help us get to the next one. You don't like the weather conditions that you're in metaphorically, but you're not doing what it takes to get the money to hop on a plane and go be somewhere else when you can. Nobody's holding you back from doing this. And I want you to understand that you have the power. You possess what you need to get to the other side. Let me tell you how I know when God is waiting on you. I know when God is waiting on somebody, when you keep having the same idea come to your mind and you don't make it come to reality. When the same idea keeps coming to your head, when you keep hearing the same thing, you keep getting the same sign, but you're not acting on that. You're not taking that information, whether it comes to your mind and your thoughts, whether it comes through somebody's conversation, whether it comes through a book. No matter how that information gets to you, when information continuously comes to you, because that's what we call a sign. When information looks too good to be true, when we almost want to call it a coincidence, right? Those are signs. When that information is coming to you, but you're not doing nothing with it, that's how I know when God is waiting on you. That's how I know when God is waiting on a person, because the information keeps coming back to you in the form of a coincidence, but you're not acting on it. You want to know how I know God is waiting on you? You're praying for the thing that you want, but once the prayer is done, now what are you doing to put that into practice? When you get out into the field, when you leave your house, when you leave the comfort of your room, when you leave the comfort of your bed, what are you doing with your time and your energy to get that, to make that prayer become something that, what are you doing with your time to make sure that prayer becomes a reality? Because God needs your help. God is asking for collaboration, right? You got to collaborate with God. Don't just ask God to do stuff for you. Do what you can do too while you're waiting on God, while you're waiting on that answer from God, while you're waiting on that answer from God, while you're waiting on those signs, while you're waiting for your reality to change and your reality to manifest differently around you. What are you doing? How are you putting your one foot in front of the other to get you one step closer? What are you doing? You got to collaborate with God. You want to know how I know God is waiting on you? Because you know exactly what you need to do, but you keep putting it off. You know exactly what you need to do. More times than not, you know that, you know what, today, if I got up and I did this, that would probably get me one step closer to the thing that I'm telling everybody that I want, or the thing that I know deep down in my heart that I actually want. That's how I know God is waiting on you. This is how you can know, right? Because you know what you need to do, but for some reason you're not doing it. And this is not to judge you. This is not to make you feel smaller, but it is to be honest and have an honest conversation with you in hopes to inspire you to have that honest conversation with yourself. You want to know how I know God is waiting on you? Because you continue to feed the thing that's keeping you away from where you want to be. You continue to feed the fear. You continue to feed the stress. You continue to feed the anxiety. It's the craziest thing in the world. You don't want to feel this way, but you're not doing nothing to starve that. You're not starving the anxiety. You're not starving the depression. You're not starving the stress. You're not starving it, right? You continue to feed it by not doing nothing. You continue to feed it by making excuses. You continue to feed it, right? You want less of this thing in your life, but all you do is make it stronger and stronger, right? Meanwhile, you starving the thing that's going to get you one step closer to where you say you actually want to be. You starving it because you're not. Actions is how you feed, right? Let me do what I said I was going to do. You feeding it. Let me do some research. You feeding it. Let me remove myself from the wrong people and put myself around the right people. You feeding it. That's how I know God is waiting on you, because you're not taking the steps to get one step closer to what you actually want to do. You want to know how I know God is waiting on you? Because the door is not locked, but you won't put your hands around the knob to open it, because a lot of the time we convince ourselves that we're not worthy to go through the doors, that God already gave us access to at birth. And that leads perfectly into my next point. Sometimes we're praying for access to a door when we got the key right here in our hand. Sometimes we're trying to get through a door. We're trying to get access to a place, right? We're trying to move through something. The only thing that's stopping us is us, because we have what we need already. I know that God gave me everything that I needed. I might not have the directions. I might not have the relationships. I might not have the exact answers on how to get there faster, right? Because a lot of the time, the reason why we struggle with procrastination versus patience is because we suffer with our relationship with speed. You need to change your relationship with speed, right? You need to let go of your desire and your expectations to get through something fast, the fast way, when really real progress happens slowly. You get what I'm saying? It's a reason why the turtle beat the rabbit. It's a reason why the tortoise beat the hare. There's a reason for that. God gave you absolutely everything you need to be successful in life. But because you don't know the fastest way to get there, you're like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get there. I don't know. I don't know, because I want to get there overnight. And because I can't get there overnight, and because there ain't nobody telling me how to get there overnight, now I just don't know how to do it. When it's like, but you have everything that you need. You got arms, you got legs, you got a heart, you got a mind, you got a spirit. You got everything you need. You got discernment, you got intuition, you got foresight. God gave us the superpowers that we need to chisel that shit away, bro, to swing that axe and eventually cut through that tree. God gave us everything that we need, man. But because it's not happening overnight, we act like we don't got nothing. Forfeiting your power, forfeiting your ability. And I want this conversation to be the wake-up call so you realize, hey, snap out of it. You got what you need, bro. A lot of the time, we're not going through the door and we don't realize that we got the key right here in our hand, because the key is your intuition. The key is your discernment. The key is your discipline. The key is your faith. The key is your hope. The key is your heart. The key is your mind. The key is your spirit. The key is your emotions. The key is your willpower. The key is your tenacity, right? The key is already within you. You get what I'm saying? You a janitor, baby. You got multiple keys. This is the real catch. Yo, this is the real finesse. You're so powerful as a human being. You got multiple keys. You like a janitor. You got all the keys to get through every single door that you need to, but we looking at certain doors and we being like, you know what? You got all the keys that you need to get through every door, but the problem is we got all these keys and we don't want to sit through which one we need today. We don't want to sit through which one we need next to get to whatever door is in front of us at this moment. Because as soon as you get through that door, it's going to be another one. And as soon as you get through that door, it's going to be another one after that. But you got everything you need right here. Now you got to spend the time and you got to do the work to figure out which key is necessary for this door. And that's what takes the time. That's where, the process is slow sometimes. But just because it's slow don't mean you're not going to get there. But just because it's slow don't mean you're not going to get there. Just because it's slow don't mean that you're never going to have access to what's always been available to you. It's your birthright to have the most in life. It's your birthright to have what you desire to have in life. That's your birthright. And all you got to do is figure out which key. Sometimes we're praying for access to a door and we got the key right here in our hand. And the last thing that I want to say about that is the lane that you're in was built for the speed that you're capable of. I might run faster than a lot of people. Some people might run faster than me. But for what I need in my life, for the lane that I was born into, everything that I was born with was all that I needed. All that I have is all that was required for me to get to where it is that I need to go. And I want you to understand that it's no different for you. What you have is all that you were asked to have. What you have is all that you were required to have to get from where you are to where you're trying to be. Your lane was built for your speed. I don't give a fuck if niggas going 90 miles over here. I was only ever needed to go 65. You get what I'm saying? I don't care if they got a Ferrari, that don't matter to me. You wanna know why? Because that's their car. That's their problems. And for all I know, their car could have a goddamn radiator leak and they gonna be done before you know it. You get what I'm saying? All I gotta do is focus on what I got. I can focus on all this. Right? When I came into this world, all God needed me to do is go 65. And he gave me everything that I needed to maintain that speed. I don't got to worry about what another nigga do. That's his speed. My car not built like his. My car built like mine. And there's a comfort in that because you don't got to compare yourself to nobody. You get what I'm saying? You don't got to feel less than because you realize it's not a matter about somebody being better than me or me being better than somebody else. It's more about understanding like, hey, bro, I'm doing the best with what I got and I want to encourage you to do the best with yours. That's it. Listen, man, and the fifth thing that I want to talk about is understanding that sometimes the voice of God that you're waiting for is the voice that you're already hearing in your head. God don't always speak to people through scripture. God don't always speak to you through pastors on a pulpit. God don't always speak to you through churches or sermons. Sometimes God speaks through you through the feeling that you got in your stomach. Sometimes God's speaking to you through the thoughts that you have in your mind. That thought that you kind of got on loop like a song. It just keep coming to you, right? You can't get away from it. You keep finding yourself thinking this thing. Sometimes that's God. Because if we are made in God's image, then that means that God is within you. That means God is inside of you. God is every bit of being inside of you just as much as God is everything outside of you. And the simple way to say that is stop looking for the answers outside of yourself. Understand that you have to but we got to create better relationships with ourselves. We don't trust ourselves enough, which is why we always looking for the answer outside of ourselves. We looking for the answer in everything but us. We look into that mirror, we put them clothes on, and we think the answer couldn't possibly already be here. We think to ourselves, we couldn't possibly know everything we need to make that $1 million. We couldn't possibly have everything within us to make that connection, to make those steps, to take those chances, to make those sacrifices, to go further in life. I couldn't possibly have it in myself, right? Because it's me. I'm not special. I'm not smart enough. I'm not worthy enough. I don't have the experience, but that is a lie. Yeah, some things you got to gain in this life that are outside of yourself. Sometimes you do got to get some shit that you don't got already. Sometimes. But majority of the time, God already pre-installed you with the apps that you need to be successful. God already pre-installed you with the energy and the magic that you need to be successful. Sometimes we silence that voice of God in our head because sometimes we silence that voice of God in our head because we thinking sometimes we silence that voice of God in our head because we trying to think with logic. Don't let logic convince you of something that only faith is qualified to tell you, right? Sometimes logic will tell you, well, this is not possible because of this. I can't do this because I don't got that. I can't go here because I don't know them. Sometimes logic will tell you that, but sometimes logic is not qualified to talk to you about everything. Sometimes we having conversations with logic that only faith is qualified to talk to us about. And that's why, like in church and in the Bible, it'll say, be in the world, but not of the world. Because when you in the world will tell you based on our rules, based on our laws and our possibilities, right? You can't do this. You cannot paint outside the lines. You cannot go outside the margin. Because logic just says so, right? It's not possible. It's never been done before, so why should you ever believe that you can do it? But faith will tell you, I don't give a fuck what somebody never did before me, I'm gonna do it. Faith will tell you, I don't care what you're not capable of, I'm capable of it. Faith will tell you, it doesn't matter what I don't have, I'm gonna take what I got and make the most with it. I'm gonna take the little bit that everybody before me had, but never could manage to make a miracle happen from it, and I'm gonna make that miracle happen from it, because that's what faith says. Don't let logic be telling you shit that only faith can tell you. You understand? Everybody and everything is not qualified to be talking to you. Sometimes you gotta let somebody know respectfully, you're not qualified to talk to me because you're not capable of going where it is that I'm trying to go. You ain't never been where I'm trying to be. You ain't never did this before. I need to talk to people. I need to talk to my faith. I need to set my logic down. You know what? Sometimes you got to have a conversation with yourself and be like, you know what, logic? Thank you for getting me as far as you've gotten me. But now I got to have a conversation with faith, because faith is the thing that's going to get me to where you can't take me no more. Thank you for getting me this far. I really appreciate that. I couldn't have done it without you. Now I need faith to take me to the rest of the direction, right? Sometimes you can take some information and it'll take you far in life, up until you get to a ceiling and you realize, like, I can't get to the next spot continuing to do what I've always done. I got to put you down just so I could pick this up. Sometimes that voice from God that you're looking for is the voice that's already in your head. It's in your spirit. It's in your intuition. You get what I'm saying? Trust that voice. Trust that feeling. And just see. Because one thing about me, I ain't never been afraid of losing, but I am afraid of living with regrets. I'm not afraid to lose. If I lose, fuck it. If I fall, fuck it. I fell. But I can get back up. But when you live with that regret because you never tried, you can't rewrite the history. You get what I'm saying? Listen, I could be a loser. I could live with being a loser, but at least I know I lost because I was trying. What I can't live with is being the type of nigga who looking at everybody else and telling them what they doing wrong, but meanwhile, you're not doing it yourself. I can't live like that. And I don't want anybody to live like that, because you deserve better than that. If you know better, then do better. Apply your logic so that not only you can do better for your life, but then you can be a walking testimony to give inspiration to the others that are coming behind you. Sometimes the voice from God that you're looking for is the voice that's inside of your head. Sometimes the answers are not outside of you. Sometimes everything you need is already here. Sometimes what you need is already here, man. And I hope that is a good word of encouragement to somebody. I hope that that is the fuel and the motivation and the push to somebody. Listen, I don't know everything, man. I'm just out here trying to share what I've learned. And that doesn't mean that I know it all. But hopefully what I know could possibly be one step more than what somebody has. You know what I mean? Maybe me sharing this is more than somebody else knows. And then maybe you can take this and then add it on to what you got going on. And then maybe you can learn more than I ever knew. And then maybe you can reach back and you can continue paying that love forward, right? Because we all need each other. Each one really does teach one. Shout out my boy Chief, man. Each one teach one podcast. We need each other. And so, you know, that's the conversation for today, man. That's the podcast. This is for my people that are waiting for those signs. Sometimes you got to wait, but then sometimes you got to have that action. And no matter what side of the line in the sand that you're on, I want you to be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself and understand that, especially for my people, you know, you don't have people teaching you and showing you the way. You got to be extra patient with yourself. You got to give yourself extra grace, because, you know, you're really doing this all on your own. And it is a much slower journey when you're doing that. But I want you to know that regardless of how slow the journey is, you're going to get to where it is that you want to be. You're going to get to your destination. I truly believe that, because I believe in you. I do. I do believe in you. If you're listening to this right now, I love you and I believe in you and I want the best for you. I don't need to know you. I don't need to see your face. I don't need to have met you before. I don't care what you did wrong. That's the beauty of not knowing you. I don't have to be personally connected to your fuck-ups. I don't have to be personally connected to your mistakes. I'm more so worried about how can I inspire anybody and just play my part to inspire anybody to get one step closer to being better, to being greater. Listen, this is the Halfway Up Podcast. My name is Wolf Taylor. You already know the religion, the mantra, the outro, the spirit of the brand. Whenever I'm working, I will remember that done is better than perfect. And if I'm satisfied with my work, then that means that I'm living in my purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, if you like this episode, please leave a rating. Please leave a review. Yo, there's this one guy who lives in Ohio. I see the comments that you keep leaving, but the distribution site that I use, Buzzsprouts, it won't allow me to respond to you. So please, if you're leaving a message on my Buzzsprout, hit me on the gram, _Wolf Taylor. Sometimes I pronounce Wolf weird, so it's WOLFTAYLOR. I should pop right up. I got the pineapple here, so you can't miss me. If you're leaving a rating and review, thank you. If you made it to this far, to the end of the episode, please hit me. Hit me. Reach out to me. Let me know that you've made it this far. Please let me know, because I really want to understand the people that are really, there are people that, first of all, I appreciate all the support that I get. I appreciate it all. But there are certain people, they in that Delta Sapphire lounge. You know what I mean? They in that premium class, right? Because they're willing to go a little bit further than the casual listener. And that's not to like put the casual listener down, because your support is just as needed. But for the people that are going above and beyond, I think that they deserve a little bit more. And so I want to make an actual list of those people, because those are the people I'm going to be giving free merch. Those are the people that I'm going to be giving free access to the events that I'm going to be having in the future. Those are the people I'm going to be giving free access to the Patreon, So with that being said, man, I love you guys. And I just want the best for you, and just give yourself grace and be patient with yourself, man. Get those journals, write things down. Take care of yourself, pour into yourself, do whatever it is that you need to make sure that you can become the best version of you. Remember, youth is temporary, but health is forever. I am Wolf Taylor. I am out of here. Peace.